That's like working at a mindset level. That's working with the mind, because there are different levels that human beings function at. And so you can come in at all of these different levels to change your lives. So for example, at the physical level, I'm not going to talk much about this, but it's pretty obvious that if you are in good physical health, you're going to have the energy to change some of these deep-rooted patterns. Good diet, exercise, so that you're feeling your best. You owe it to yourself to give yourself those sort of things. But one of the other things that I wanted to talk about today is the name of my company, which is called The Courage to Connect, because this is what happened to me. It's that I did all the psychotherapy, and I went to dozens, actually, of psychotherapists to get help. I went to counselors. I went to loads of workshops. I lived, in self-help books, the equivalent of YouTube, because it didn't have YouTube that much in those days. And I did all of these self-healing things, and I was still miserable. And I was still getting into toxic relationships. So that made me search deeper. And it was only really when I started to search deeper and got to a deeper understanding of how I could change my life. And these techniques that I'm talking about here are not just good for relationships. These techniques they're like gold. They are actually valuable for increasing your income, finding the right house to live, and affecting your communities, becoming more of a leader. All of these things can be affected at what I am going to call the quantum field level. So let me see if I can give a very complicated scientific principle, explain it in a very few sentences that's going to be meaningful for you, which I know I can. So the quantum field is what quantum physicists mean by the substance of the universe. So the substance of the universe, let's call it, for the sake of argument tonight, let's just call it energy. Okay, so it is energy. You would agree that you have energy. And you will agree, because you would have heard this, that matter is energy too. So when I hold up this pen, okay, it seems a solid thing, but because you've all done basic physics, but actually it's made up of atoms and molecules and tiny little particles. And actually most of this pen is empty space. And so what's happened is that at the quantum level, these minute particles are vibrating at a certain level that have brought them together to make a pen. That's what it is. And this is the same for the whole universe. And what is so fascinating about the time that we are living in today is that scientists are beginning to understand and explain and prove that this is the case. So, for example, the Nobel Prize recently got won by a group of quantum physicists who are beginning to explain how things react to each other and how we react to each other. So I'm going to quote just one very simple experiment that they have been doing, which is that they've been able to measure minute, tiny particles now that are so the most minute, which there wasn't the ability to do that even 10 years ago. They didn't have the ability, but now they've got the very sophisticated equipment, and they're able to measure these minute, tiny, tiny particles. And what they found, really interestingly to me, this is like lights go on when I think about this, is that if they looked at a particle over here, they could see it. Then if they turned over here, they could see the same particle. So this particle was in two places at the same time. What they concluded is that the observer is having an effect on the observed. In other words, they were creating the thing that they were observing. Now, I know this is like probably, what does this have to do with the toxic relationships and leaving a toxic relationship? I can hear you thinking that now. But it does. It has a profound implication for every single thing. And this is where I had to go in my healing journey, because I had done all the surface stuff. So, you know, you've got the physical, you've got the mental, you've got the emotional, you've got the energetic, and you've got the spiritual. And what I'm talking about here, for want of another word, is the spiritual. What I'm talking about here, and it doesn't conflict with religion, because actually all religions fundamentally say the same things. And actually they talk about this, and the great leaders, whether they were Muhammad or Abraham or Jesus Christ or Nelson Mandela, whoever, they actually had an understanding of the quantum reality. Maybe they didn't explain it in the way that I'm doing it now, but they used it. They used it to manifest results. So at the quantum level, if you are in an abusive, toxic relationship, you have the power to shift that. You have the power to change that. If you can go into the quantum field and access it with the new reality that you are wanting to create. It's a very profound realization, this. And in my view, you can do what you like with my view, but my view actually is that I'm talking about here consciousness, conscious awareness at an energetic level. And in my view, actually, this is really the future. Yes, we're going to have AI, absolutely. And that's going to, be a really big change in the way that we live our lives. And also consciousness is present for us all if we become aware of it. And that's a very, very big part of what I teach. So bringing it back to healing from a toxic relationship. So that is where I had to go in order to heal these deeply ingrained patterns. And so these patterns were so deeply ingrained, and I had to shift that. And after having done quite a lot of psychotherapy and counseling, which was valuable as far as it took me, I then had to, and do now, come in at the quantum field level, because then miracles can happen, except they're not miracles. It is the law of the universe, actually.